Okay, so welcome. This is part 2 of our open house series, which is just so fun to get to hang and talk about all things shamanic and spirit and beauty and wisdom and love. And so it looks like we have some of you who were here on the call last week are back with us. And I know that women are also listening to the recording as well. So we welcome you whenever you are listening to all of this. And Damini probably hasn't seen this in many, long time. But I thought this would be a beautiful way for me to introduce her to all of you. And so for those of you who have come on any retreat with me, you have seen this beautiful drum. My treasure. And so this is a drum that Damini actually made and was told in a shamanic journey to give to me. But she had had it for many years. So you can share more about the story. But, this is the beauty for me of shamanic journeying is that Damini was, and so I've had this drum for probably 15 years or something like that. And so Damini has really been in circle with all of us, whether you've known it or not. And so last week I got to introduce Damini, and I think that this week maybe we'll do just a little grounding, and then I'll introduce you, and then we can kind of journey from there. Does that feel okay? So I'm feeling inspired to do the grounding, and then I'll pass it over to you.
Okay.
Well, after I introduce you. Okay. Let me tell my family that it's quiet time. Okay. So, just taking a moment to look into this computer screen and all the amazingness that technology offers, that we can journey together in this way and come together in a very sacred, sweet, beautiful way through the virtual realms of these internet ethers. And so we welcome all of you and all of those who will be listening. And when you feel ready, after you've taken a beautiful look at each woman, you can close your eyes. And just coming into your own internal space, your own realms. Letting this ancient energy of your breath really land you into this moment. Letting go of anything that you were doing before this moment, anything that's calling your attention for after our time together. Really inviting yourself to get present through your breath and through the sound of this drum beat. That sacred beat that truly is part of our DNA. That connects us to all of our ancestors, all of our teachers, our wisdom council, our guides, and the great mystery. Feeling the way in which you are grounded and rooted into Mother Earth. Feeling the way in which she holds you and nourishes you. Feeling her generosity as she roots you in. As you remember that you are her daughter. feeling what it feels like as you ground into her soil, as you ground into her energy. Sensing that as you yearn for her and the joy of being in communion with her is what she feels as well about you. And just noticing in your body how you feel connecting into Gaia. And on your next inhale, leaving those roots in Mother Earth and bringing your breath back up through those soils, those rich, dense soil, the rocky soil, and then back up through your body to the crown of your head. And letting yourself open to spirit, to God, to Goddess, to the galactic beings, to the unseen, to the teachers you know, to the teachers you don't yet know, to Father, Son, to all the star systems and the planets, and letting yourself expand into the oneness. Letting yourself enjoy the communion of above. Feeling the way in which you are held and supported and guided. Feeling the way in which these guides and teachers and beings clear the obstacles on your path and remind you of your sacred birthright. Breathing into the vast potentiality that exists here and that therefore exists within you. Your next exhale, bringing all this sacred energy back down over your crown, and really imagining the grace of spirit pouring over you, into you, and through you, from your crown all the way down to your toes, filling up every cell, molecule, particle that you are made of. Placing one hand over your heart, one hand over your womb space, and taking a moment to presence the gratitude of holding both the energies of above and below in your being, in your body, at this time on the planet. Calling on any other teachers that you wish to be with us, any elements or any beings that support you, that are full of love. And of course, we give thanks to be in this beautiful circle, presencing each woman here for her courage, her commitment, her devotion, and all those who are not here at this time but are still in our circle. Taking 2 more deep breaths. And may all that is spoken, all that is shared during our time together be in the highest good for all beings everywhere. And so it is, and so mote it be. Whenever you are ready, beginning your journey back from your own inner dark familiarity, back out to the external to meet us in this beautiful space together. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so happy and honored to be in circle and to come back together with a lot of you. It seems like a lot of you were here last week and same faces. So part 2, here we go. And part 2, I get to introduce Damini all over again. For those of you who are just meeting her, you're in for a real exquisite journey. Damini is, you know, it's funny, we start with like all the accolades, right? I'm going to start with the love. Damini is love embodied. She is a generous, amazing healer and practitioner and artist, and someone who, obviously you heard me speak last week that she really is a person who lives this path, but she really lives this path with integrity and authenticity, and has never, in my experience, gotten caught up in the external kind of validation of all of this work. It's really just what she's passionate about and what she lives to create and cultivate and be in the world. So she's also an amazing facilitator of healing. I've seen her do the wildest things. If she ever gives me permission, I will share one wild one I once saw, because I used to sit in and shadow Damini when I wanted to learn plant spirit medicine. So she's a 5-element acupuncturist and a shamanic practitioner, and you also, you used to do allergy elimination and all of that, and she's just a woman devoted to supporting others on their journeys. So I welcome you, and I love you, and I honor you, and I pass our virtual talking stick over to you to be our emissary of shamanic training.
Huh. There we go. Hello. Spirit is funny. Sometimes you could do a whole lecture and it's you're on mute. So I want to thank each and every one of you for returning from last week. Those of you who are listening again, maybe for the first time, to go ahead and listen back on the other recording from last week. If this is the first time you're being introduced to myself and Joanne's program. And I'm just delighted to be here. I have to just tell you a little funny story. I just spent the weekend up in the Adirondacks at a shamanic retreat. And when I tell you technology was just wonko. So I've been praying to the goddess of technology. I ask you all to just take a moment and hold her dearly in your heart. Yeah. And welcome her. I mean, I think, goddesses show up to support a culture at a particular time. And I think the goddess of technology, she hasn't given me a formal name yet, is definitely being one. And Joe, you're going to really get acquainted with her as well, because Joe's joining the program from Australia. Yes? And I'm really excited about that. So this week, I wanted to talk about healing from a shamanic perspective. And I'm assuming a lot of you are already doing healing work. And as a practitioner, we have this unbelievable desire, actually not even as a practitioner, as a person with a wide open heart that feels what's going on in the world, right? Some of you have this desire to heal others. And in the program, we're absolutely going to teach healing modalities. But most importantly, I want to let you know that this training is for you and your own personal empowerment, and to build your relationship with your helping spirits, some that you know already, which is fabulous, and some that you've never met that are kind of waiting in the wings for you. And it's within that relationship with your helping spirits and with the web of life that you can be power filled, and then you can do healing work. So healing from a shamanic perspective. I mean, I mentioned this a little bit last week, and shamans were, somebody often chosen by the community. So somebody had a particular attribute, somebody saw something in them as a very young child, and they became the local shaman. And so what is the role of a local shaman in most indigenous cultures? They were doctors, counselors, guides, psychotherapists. They were, without all those roles, they held the community together. They were often, I sometimes think of them like the mayor of the community. Like, they brought people together. They held space for the community to come together. Shamans were interpreters of dreams. There's a culture, there's a people in the Amazon where, and it's a great book if you ever want to read it. It's called The Last of the Dream People, where the whole community dreams together. And if I think of it, I'll grab the book in a minute for you all. But as a community, they came together every morning and spoke their dreams. And it was the shaman who helped piece together the story so those people knew how to live their lives for that day. And then they did this every day. So there's a lot of different roles for a shaman, and we often think about it for healing. And so, what is healing from a shamanic perspective? If we look at the Western paradigm, something's broken, it gets fixed, right? And that is true in shamanism. And, so shamanism, shamanic healing, has 3 or 4 aspects to it. So one is there's a loss of power, and that's the one reason. Let me get my notes. I'm still slightly in the mountains. So illness from a shamanic perspective, there's a loss of power, That could show up as depression, chronic illness, misfortune. And before I go through this whole list, you may say, oh my God, that's me. Oh my God, that's me. Don't diagnose yourself. The beauty of this training is we will learn to be in a really strong relationship with our helping spirits, and we will let our helping spirits diagnose what's going on. Because Lord knows our mind is going to go, wee, it could be this, this, and this, and this, And so part of this program is really being in direct revelation with your spirits, being in direct communication, having a trusting, loving relationship with your helping spirits. And sometimes you have a helping spirit that helps you with some particular healing or another particular healing. And we'll build all that when we come together in circle. So as I read this list, let it flow over you. Don't diagnose yourself, please, right? So the first way that illness shows up as a shamanic perspective is the loss of power, right? Another one is the loss of essence, or some of us know that as the loss of soul, but I like to think about it as essence. And then there are spiritual blockages, and some of you have done some plant spirit medicine training. And so with plant spirit medicine, that is possession, or an intrusion that, a possession is a being that's in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that gets stuck in your body. So that's another way that shamans see illness. And then another one is a being that has died but hasn't transitioned. So there's power loss, and power loss shows up as depression, chronic illness, or misfortune. And what you do with power loss is you bring somebody's power back, right? Your client in this case, or your colleague in class that you'll be working with. We'll be doing these exercises with each other, or at least most of them. The loss of essence or soul, that shows up in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure a lot of you can understand when I say PTSD. That is a loss of essence, a loss of yourself because of a trauma, right? And then there's, so you can have PTSD, you can have addiction, autoimmune, unending grief, and sometimes even a coma, because if your soul's not in your body becomes, on a sustainability mode, but the soul, the spirit isn't really interacting. And then soul blockages or spiritual blockages, again, that could be entities, and then sometimes can be pain, just pain in your body, pain from that doesn't make any sense why it's there. And we probably all know that, where, if you're in a conversation with somebody or you've had a fight with somebody, perhaps the middle of your torso hurts a little bit, there's pain from the hurt or pain from the grief. And that's natural. That's a reaction with your chakras or your meridians. But if it stays forever or for a long time, that's a spiritual intrusion. So let's just talk a little bit about loss of power. I'm going to keep weaving these in and out, and then if we have questions, we can bring them up. So a loss of power, last week I mentioned that if we want to believe that shamanism is live and well, right? We know this because we still give babies rattles and we give babies stuffed animals, right? And so what we give them is the rattle, which is a power object, and then a stuffy, well, they're all over there, is a representation of that child's often power animal. So more in indigenous cultures, somebody went and did the work and tried to figure out who the power animal of this child was and brought it back in. For us, and I still think we're really connected, as crazy or as out of touch as some people are. I was at the Apple store a little while ago, and I was talking to this man. I'm a sidebar teacher. Like I always do. I always feel like should have a little bubble here, but I was at the Apple store and I'm talking to this man about camping, and he's like, oh, I really love to go hiking. And I'm telling him about one of my favorite camp places or hiking camping places on the East Coast, and it's a dark sky park. And he said, like, well, what's a dark sky park? And it's like, it's a place that is so far away from cities that it's black. I mean, magic, right? And I said, so go on the new moon if you go up there, because it'll really be black. And he goes, well, why the new moon? And it's like, we all run in circles. Our community, we all have a similar language, but I almost fell off the stool because he didn't understand that the new moon was black. Like I don't think he even conceived the moon being anything different than the big round disc or sliver, that classic style. And I was like, this is why we need to do the work. We can do the work on ourselves and we could do the work on the clients, but by the way we do this work and we start talking about it, hopefully somebody is seeing something more than the need for astroturf and the sun or a bright moon. Like somebody could start recognizing the nuances and the beauty of the web of life. So there's the little sidebar for that moment. So, loss of power, I believe, and, we all have different spiritual beliefs. And I think the beauty of contemporary shamanism is you can take that all with you. I am not, I mentioned this last week, I am a girl from the city. I'm an second generation Italian-American woman from Philadelphia. The only thing I knew of magic was tarot cards and hexes. That was the only thing that got passed down in my cultural lineage in America. So I'm not, I'm not a woman. Let's say it this way. I have great respect for indigenous cultures and indigenous trainings, and I have studied with practitioners from Peru and Brazil. But I am who I am, and the way that you have to own, or I have to own this medicine, is to make it mine. So I'm not teaching indigenous styles per se. I studied with the Foundation of Shamanic Studies originally, and what they did is they took the core cultural belief of shamanism from around the world, or from as much as they could from around the world. And they figured out that each culture does these particular things, like honors the land, honors the web of life, calls in the directions, and then if you look at goddess work, they're doing the same things, so if you look at the Druids and mostly let's look at the Druids for a minute, they were still doing the same work. They called it a particular thing, but really there is still a core belief of a core thread that we would call shamanic work. So, I'm not necessarily teaching you, a Peruvian style of X. I'm going to teach you how to build power and how to restore power for yourself and for patients. So I just went in a little twirl. Just bear with me, I do come back. So loss of power, right? Depression, chronic illness, misfortune. So we are born, if we go back to our core belief on who we are, right? We are born filled up. And again, this is a cultural or spiritual way that you believe how we come in, and you can hold all of your teachers, your ordinary reality teachers and your non-ordinary reality teachers, all in one beautiful place. And I think that's the beauty of contemporary shamanism, that you don't have to let go of your religion or your spiritual practice. You bring it with you. And that's what makes it really unique for you. So we are born these bright light beings. And, I've done a lot of journeys with my helping spirits, and I've talked to them about, why, it's like, for me, shamanism is a lot of like, why am I here? Now, why did I choose to be here? And what is it that I get to bring in the world? And I think, Spirit's like, okay, here you go. You get to go back in body again, which is an unbelievable blessing. We come back in body and we get to enjoy this beautiful, beautiful world. And in there, that magic fairy stardust, or whatever you want to call that light from the divine, has a message, has kind of a guiding star for you in your life. And we have that. And, and when children are born and raised in a way that really engenders their light, like Ocean, there's going to be a lot more ease, because he's going to own who he is until he's a teenager, and that'll probably be a whole different story. But, it's like for us, we come in, and some of us are nurtured and raised beautifully, and we get to hold our light, and some people, they don't get, and most of the time this is going to be with your clients. They're not really quite raised to be their bright selves. It's like, it is those funny stories. Children should be seen and not heard. Don't be too loud. Don't be too out there. That's always, that's fear, right? We know that's fear. Fear of, if you are too bright, somebody will notice. Well, you know what? If we are so bright, let everybody notice, and so, we're blessed. We're blessed to be on this call. We're blessed to be on this path. And we get to mirror being fully filled up and in our path and in our light for our patients and for our community. So the good thing about this training work we're going to do is you're all going to get healing work on each other, whether you were present in the room or you're present by the goddess of technology. We will all get healing, because in shamanism, time and space don't matter. I think a lot of times we do physical healing because the mind needs to feel somebody touch us. But some of you have done long distance healing. Long distance healing happens, I think, even quicker than physical healing, because you don't have to go through the matter and you don't have to get filtered through the brain. So, again, so there's an advantage of being on technology, right? So, for those people that come into our lives, or the people that walk in as patients and or practitioners. I have treated a ton of practitioners that have a lot of these things on the list. And why? Because they're not filled up. I've met many young healers that, somehow they didn't get the message that you need to be filled up before you open up, right? And so if you completely open up and you don't have a beautiful invocation or prayer like Joanne did this morning or just earlier, it's like everything gets to come in. And you all know people like this. I or have run into them in stores. Like, they are just kind of tripped out and blissed out, but they are not grounded. They're really losing a sense of time and place. They are twixt in between, if you want to use that word. They're half here and half somewhere else. That's not a spiritual way of being. Shamanism takes the body with you. And I think all practices, as long as you're in body, you have to take your body with you. Because if not, you're more pathological than filled up with light. And that's my opinion, and I'll put that as the caveat. Always, if there's anything that I say that doesn't fit into your core belief, put it off to the side, and if it still bugs you, then come and talk to me about it. And I think that's the beauty of these calls that we're going to have after the training, is that there's time to dialogue about it. There's time for you to process it and experience it and practice it, and then question it and bring it to the community. And I think that's an important component. So you're not just here for 5 days. We're 6, 7 months, and we're really 9 months together, when we think about it. So being filled up is part of learning, part of the training, but it's also about you all being as filled up as you possibly can so you can do the healing work on behalf of your clients, right? So soul loss, when people, or loss of power, I've had patients who've come in and have had continuously bad luck, like just one bad luck on the after another. And so we could say, or maybe it's a cultural belief that that person was cursed or something. But I believe you can't get anything. And I mean, even in a cold. So in Chinese medicine, there's this concept of Wei Qi, of defensive energy. And it's governed by your lungs. And what does your lungs do? Brings in breath. On a spiritual level, the lungs bring in inspiration. They bring the divine into your body, into your blood, and circulates through your body. And so you all know that when you take some nice deep breaths, you get filled up, right? Nothing can get in when you're filled up, right? You can't get a cold, because a cold is no different than a spiritual intrusion, right? And in fact, the same word, a little Chinese medicine sidebar, but the same word for possession is now the contemporary word in Chinese or pinyin for cold. So it's just a different degree of something getting in. I mean, we all know, and perhaps maybe you've even had a flu once, where you get something and it comes in and it takes over your body. It's a virus possession, right? If you are strong, if your immune system's strong, and if you are filled up, we do what our body's supposed to do, our spirit and our soul, we push it out. If we are in the presence of somebody that is raging, let's just say raging, and most of you on this call are empathic, right? So how do you not let all of that come into you, being filled up? I like to think of being filled up as like a little deflective energy, and like sometimes for me it's like a super suit or a Wonder Woman suit. Like I do all kinds of things. I go into malls, which are totally overwhelming for me. So I have to like zip on my power suit because, to me the malls are just made to make you like brainwash you a little bit and have you go shopping and make purchases that you never thought you needed, but like if you stay filled up, you can get in and get out, and so when you have clients coming in, I mean, you can see people that are translucent on some level, they're not fully in their body, and that's a loss of power. And you can see on a mental level, they may not be able to hold like self-esteem, right? They just don't have that ability to hold their self-worth. Loss of power can also be somebody who speaks but nobody listens to. Do you following me? So it's just like when we are in power, we are filled up. And when we're in loss of power, it's the other end of that. So however you would see that. I always say that if you're feeling very vulnerable, don't go to big, dark, scary places, because you're not filled up enough and you don't want anything to get in. In the Chinese, or actually one person that I studied with used to say, actually, this is interesting, somebody from Chinese medicine world and somebody from the shamanic world, and they said almost the same thing. If you're feeling low of energy or if you're feeling not filled up, don't go into a bar. I mean, if you think about it, a bar is often these dark places or dark alleys. Like when they're dark, it's like things can hide, and so I don't know where all of you live, but, I lived in urban areas most of my life. And there's a particular thing, suit, attitude that you put in when you go walking through the city, right? It's, it's your defensive energy. You just kind of fill yourself up a little bit more, and because we're all empathic, and I'm just too empathic sometimes, it's like I have to kind of put things around me to make sure that I'm okay. And it's just different ways of being. I mean, you could do this in your car too. Fill yourself up and then let it come out around your car and then drive, and you'll always be fine. But for patients, when they don't have that sense of self, that filled up, then what do? You bring power back. And we do that in a lot of different ways, but a very specific, again, cross-cultural way is to bring power back by bringing somebody's power animal back. So I believe that we have a power animal, and I talked about this last week. So if you're kind of lost in this, if this is your first time listening to this conversation, listen to the second tape. But very briefly, there are helping spirits that support us for living in this world. They want to, they are our cheerleaders going, yes, you've come here. You can be this bright light that you want to be, and we are here to guide you. And so our helping spirits show up as sometimes humans. We all had a human who's come into our life and really has guided us. I think they are helping spirits. But when I'm talking about them shamanically, they're non-ordinary reality teachers. So we live in ordinary reality. They're in non-ordinary reality. Teachers in human form or animals. And, some people have a zoo and some people have 2 or 3, and it's all perfect. But they're here to love and support us and keep us safe. I mean, if you think about what we do all day, even down to getting a shower, I mean, it's like sometimes you just need, you need a lot of help and support. And if you're feeling vulnerable, there's the potential of tripping or bumping into something, we don't do that as much because I always think that our helping spirits are around us and protecting us. And I believe that we are born with 1, 2. I believe that our power animals in particular and our teachers reflect a particular essence that we have inside us. So I work with Crow a lot, and I love shiny things. I just have an obsession with shiny things and a little bit of restaurant claustrophobia, but we won't go there. Shiny things, sorry. But I always think that's my crow trying to get my attention. And so we all have these helping spirits. Most people don't know that, but we've all had imaginary friends as children, right? And I believe our imaginary friends were our helping spirits. And because we are still close to birth, we're still close to that veil of the other side, whatever you want to call that, in this life that we can see. It's as we grow and kind of life stops us from seeing, or unless you're one of those brilliant, bright children who's are nurtured that way, we just, people suddenly say, oh, well, we don't believe in fairy tales, and we don't believe in fairies and gnomes and unicorns. And, you see where I'm going with this. It's a cultural belief to not believe in magic. But what I really think that is, it's a cultural way of keeping our power down. And not keeping us bright. So we all have helping spirits. They're all around and protecting us. When people have a particularly bad experience, or perhaps they're incredibly vulnerable, I don't think you lose a power animal. I think you need more brought in. And so when you have power loss, one of the things that I'll teach you is how to do a power animal retrieval. And that is where you, as a practitioner, go out for another person on their behalf and bring more power back. And so in that case, you're going to go out and bring back an additional helping spirit to fill you up. And I can't answer the question of why isn't one enough and why isn't one not keeping you strong enough. I don't know. I just know some people are just more porous and they need to learn to fill up, so filling up is a spiritual or a shamanic healing. Bringing back a power animal is a shamanic healing technique. Now, some people have a loss of essence, and soul retrieval is a cultural again, it's a pretty common cultural healing that shamans do. But in the 90s, Sandra Ingerman, who is the woman I study primarily with, um, brought back the concept of soul retrieval into a very broad, teachable way by a gift of her helping spirits. And so the books are relatively new, but if you read any old books, anthropology books on shamanism, you can see the threads of soul retrieval back there. But you know, soul retrieval on some level is a pretty contemporary phrase. And so what soul retrieval does is, again, you as the practitioner go out on your behalf and bring back an essence that is missing of that person. And I just want to say this to you, because I'm one of Sandra Ingerman's teachers, I have made an agreement that soul retrieval is only taught in a 5-day section. And so I cannot teach you officially her soul retrieval technique, but as I mentioned last week, my goal is to get you in such a powerful relationship with your helping spirits that if you have a client who comes in and needs a soul retrieval, you will have your helping spirits to do it. Are you following me? There's this funny thing with, oh, I know it's not just Americans, but let's just say people on the whole. You know, we have this obsession with certificates and letters after our names. And hey, I'm right there with you all. And oh God, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, here we go. Yeah. So, you know, there's a level of power, if you will, with a certificate, with labels, with numbers or letters after your name. You know, it gives you permission to do certain things. And I believe that, sorry, my brain is like twirling. I think I'm trying to get a download here. When we are healers, we think that we are doing the healing. Now, those of you who do flower essences know it's your relationship to call on a flower essence to bring healing to a particular person. Whether you do that by an essence itself, you know, so you have the education to choose a particular essence. And then there's the healing that you do with flower essence where the essence goes, me, pick me, right? And you don't often know a whole bunch about that essence. Or maybe you have, you know, a paragraph of what that essence does, right? Again, that's that core cultural belief of what most people are saying about that essence, right? But then, and I think this is when you become your own healer, is when the plant starts telling you other aspects that it does because you are in relationship with it. So when we do healing work, you know, we think, and trust me when I tell you, I am in circle with senior practitioners. I mean, like people that have been practicing as long as I have or longer. And I watch everybody struggle when, you know, the invitation is to go on behalf, you know, go to your helping spirit and ask your spirit to do a healing, right? But you get to watch. So what are you doing, right? You know, as a shamanic practitioner, what are we really doing, right? We may be rattling and we may be drumming and we may be building energy, but it's not us doing the healing. Just like it's not the flower, you know, it's not you doing the flower essence healer. You are a beautiful intermediary. You know, you are being a hollow bone for your plant or for your helping spirits. And so when my belief in this training is to get you in a way that you are in such profound relationship with your helping spirits that you can go and ask them to do the work. You know, Sandra Ingerman talks a lot about that. She sits and rattles and fills herself up and asks her spirits to do the work. You know, very often she is not doing the physical actions of things. You know, and that takes time and that takes trust to build that relationship. So you're helping spirits, why I'm going on to this long tangent story here is I cannot teach you officially soul retrieval, but I can teach you the skills and to ask your helping spirits to do a healing for your person. And if they need a soul retrieval, your helping spirit will do it. Do you understand the difference? It's like when I teach the long-term soul retrieval program, everybody's doing soul retrievals on their patients, and most of the time they're not asking if they need them, right? Because they want to do it, you know. And what I keep saying is ask your helping spirits. So when we talk about healing in the week, I'm going to bring you through a series of journeys where you build a relationship with your helping spirit. You ask your helping spirit to diagnose what's going on, you know, because, you know, diagnoses are funny. They are a cross-cultural belief most of the time of a set of symptoms and a label, you know, and our helping spirits really don't understand what those labels are. You know, shamanism talks to you through metaphor. So you know, I used PTSD earlier. If somebody has PTSD, there's 1,000 reasons why that could have happened, you know. And if we go in our human place, you know, and just think, oh, well, this is what has to happen, right? You can miss the thread. And so part of the training is to learn how to ask your helping spirits for diagnoses, right? And part of the training will also be how to do power animal retrievals and how to bring back or how to clear extractions, how to extract intrusions. And that could be things in, you know, again, that pain, or it could be entities, you know, and then there's a varying degree. And like any healing work, you will get the people to come to you that will help you build your skills. And I often think the people that are over your head, you know, the most generous thing that we can always say to somebody is, I'd rather refer you to somebody else. And I will talk about that with you all because I've been in that situation. I think Joanne's actually watched me do that with somebody. It's like, you know, there's this fine line with spiritual healing. There's the technique, and there's a lot of people teaching techniques out there. And the techniques are great because I think what they do is open up a different way of seeing something, right? But more importantly is to come back into your power, you as a practitioner, and build your relationship with the helping spirits, and then let them do the work. And I know this is a little mind twist because, you know, there's this, I want to learn technique, right? And then I want to build relationship with my helping spirits. And then you may be saying, well, why teach the technique? Because I've been asking these questions a whole bunch. Every 3 or 4 months, I ask this question to a lot of different people, in body and not in body. But if there's a whole bunch of techniques out there, why don't I just do the techniques, right? Why do I have to learn the techniques when I can just go to my helping spirits? And honestly, you're all going to have to figure that out on your own. You know, I sometimes think if we can be filled up and hold that God space inside us, that's the only technique we need. But that's hard because, you know, then you have to believe that you really do have that God space inside you and it can actually affect change. I think attention and intention are the most powerful things in healing, no matter what kind of healing you do. And I'm sure you've met people that are like, yes, and things happen for them. And then if you're kind of like, if for you, like you have an experience, you want to do something, you're like, yes, and like the pathway clears and things happen, right? That's attention and intention. And then if you're like, yeah, well, maybe, like you're just twirling around and nothing happens, you know? And so part of this week together is like how to become razor sharp with our focus, attention, and intention. So I know I'm in a little twirl today, but are you all following me? Okay. So, you know, power loss, right? If you, Joanne, did you want to say something?
I wasn't sure if you were going to keep talking. I was going to see if there were questions because I know I had a couple, but I didn't know if you wanted to keep going. I can wait.
Yeah, why don't you ask the questions and I'll go back on my garden path a little bit.
I mean, as you're talking about, you know, loss of power and loss of essence, I'm thinking of like my own experiences with you and sessions with you. And I guess what I was curious about is my experience has been that when you work on me, you know, far away,
Mm-hmm.
I can absolutely feel it. And it feels like it's pretty immediate. Like it feels
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, the next, like we finished the session and the thing that I was struggling with, it's like gone, or maybe it's a few hours. And so I'm just wondering if that's how it goes, or if that's just like different people have different sensitivities. I know there's a spectrum, but I was just more curious because I'm thinking, you know, if you bring someone's power animal back to them, or you bring someone's essence back to them, that's on the spirit level, and then it has to move through all these other layers of matter. I was more just curious, your experience of people's, like how quickly they feel it in their life.
So I'll answer that in two parts. So what I've seen in classroom with people as people have learned, and then what I've noticed doing long distance healing. So in the part of the technique, excuse me, of a power animal retrieval, like bringing power back to a person, you actually blow that essence back into the person. And it's a powerful, I mean, just you know, if you just do this to yourself for a minute, you know, it's like something happened. Your body, your mind, your bones, your soul, something as a reciprocant of something getting blown back into you. You feel it. And you can feel it come right through your body, you know. And you know what and then there's then we do rattling. So there is ritual to the healing that lets the person know in front of you that something is happening, you know. When I've done it, so people feel it often right away. Like they sit up, you can see their eyes are filled up. I mean, we've all seen people's eyes where they're you just can't get to their essence when you look in somebody's eyes. That's soul loss. You know, as far, you know, in my multiple modalities coming together, but that's soul loss. Like, you know, when you are filled up, your eyes are bright, you know, and you all know that. You've had that experience. You're just like, ah. And so when somebody sits up, like their eyes are completely different. That, you know, and you know, and then there's muscle memory, and that's why I do a lot of follow-up after healings, if the person isn't already active in a particular practice, you know, because it's body, mind, spirit, muscle memory that has to now change. Like they got everything back, but you know, if I said to you all, woohoo, you've just gotten filled up with diamond light energy, you know, it's like, ooh. But you know, we all have our moments of where we lose our light, you know, and if that happens the very next day, you're like, I've lost all my diamond light energy, you know. But no, not really. It's still there, but our muscle memory, and I believe it's of the mind, of the body, muscle memory has to adapt, and that's why people need follow-up healing. I mean, I often do believe that the healing happens right then and there, and if the person's very aligned with it, it changes them. And they're the miraculous healings, like you wrote about, you know, that miraculous healing. And then some people, they're more dense, right? And so they need follow-up work. And I'm going to talk to you all about that. But they need follow-up work to let their body know that they're healed, let their mind know that they're healed. So, and then on long distance, sometimes I call people on the phone, which I do with you sometimes, and sometimes I just do it whenever I have a moment. Because I think, you know, there is no time and space difference, right? And so for some people, they feel it right away. And some people will tell me, oh my God, I was grocery shopping, and all of a sudden they felt all this energy. You know, I try to have people long distance be somewhere at a particular time so they can just be open and receive the healing. But most people feel it. And if not, sometimes in the conversation of what I witnessed, they start to recognize that they're different. You know, it's like saying to somebody, oh my God, you were so beautiful. You know, and some of us can go, thank you. And most of us go, thank you. You know, it's like, you know, you know, and that's sometimes what happens in the healing. You know, it's like, you know, there's a lot happening, and there's a lot that has to get processed. You know that if you do a healing modality, sometimes it's hard for people to feel the nuances. You know, if you have people that come in for back pain and their back pain's better at the end, you know, if somebody comes in because they're profoundly depressed, they may or may not feel different afterwards, you know. And so part of being a healer or a practitioner of shamanism, because it's the same thing, is to talk to the person until you notice they start registering different feelings. Because we all know that some people don't know the moon's cycles. You know, maybe they don't even realize that their body is in constant pain. You know, the people aren't always as acutely aware of what's going on as we all are. And I think that's part of the practitioners, to allow people to start noticing those nuances and start noticing how spirit moves through them. I mean, because, you know, shamanism is a spiritual medicine. You know, some people may think it's a religion. I think the difference between religion and spirituality is just politics. So we could say it's a spiritual medicine, you know, and people have to take that in differently. I do know that if people come to you, no matter what modality you do, they're open to receiving, you know, unless I had a guy get dragged in by his wife once for a treatment. I knew it wasn't going to go well. But, you know, it's like, but what I did is I talked to him about what healing is, you know, and I let him make the choice, you know. So everybody has to make a choice. I'm on a tangent tear today. Anyway, what other questions did you have, Joe?
Well, you kind of answered it earlier, because as you were talking, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope we get to do all of this in the training. So you said that we're going to get to work on each other.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And what was my other question? Oh, yeah. You know, one thing that I know about you, just because I used to shadow with you and because I would have sessions with you, is you are really masterful at noticing the subtle shifts and changes that happen for somebody when they first walk into your treatment room, when you then do like the actual quote unquote healing, and then when they sit up. And I know some of it is because of your background in 5-element acupuncture and medicine. But I'm wondering if you're going to speak to any of that in the training, because what you just mentioned about, some people don't necessarily feel it, but as you talk to them, you're like, I can see like their words are changing, or their eyes look different. Of course, we're not going to say to them, like, we're not going to tell them what their experience is. But I'm just wondering if you are going to share any of those nuances of how you can notice a shift, especially if your client has it.
Well, I think that's a great question. And I think one is, by the nature of who I am and what I've done for years, I absolutely need to talk about it. But, so you're all going to learn extraction work, power. You're going to learn extraction techniques, depossession techniques. And I'm filtering how that's going to happen for you all, because there's a lot of different ways to do that. And again, that's going to depend on the group. You're also going to learn how to do power animal retrievals, and how to do some extraction work as well. So there are techniques that I'm going to teach you, and there's a whole bunch of stuff whispering in the back of my head. To learn them means that you are going to have to do them. You have to experience them, right? And so we are going to have sometimes almost an entire day working on one particular healing modality. Again, I'll have to see how the flow goes. So one is you will be in the role of practitioner, and we're having this conversation about, what do you notice? There's all different ways to receive information, and some of you are going to sense somebody's change. Some of you are going to see energy. Some of you are just going to pick up on maybe incredible subtleties in just the way the flesh is sitting on the bones. Like, we all have our gifts and skills. I think the beauty of a small class, right, and time, is that, I get to walk around and listen to what you've experienced and what you've noticed, and give feedback, but just talk about how I'm seeing things. It's like, it's not I'm training you to do like subtle energy healing, although really that is what shamanism is, but to get you to notice different things also improves your rapport as a practitioner. So does that answer your question, Joe? So there'll be techniques, and then I will be helping you cultivate what you see and what you should be looking for versus what you're seeing. And, this is an intimate group. You will open your heart up and share things with probably everybody in circle throughout the week. And I know a lot of you have been in deep and powerful circles, and you're anticipating that. And some people, it is to be a healer, you have to be on the healing path. So a lot of this work is personal healing, and then there are techniques that I will teach you so you can share those with your community in a safe way, and I think that's why Sandra asked for the soul retrieval to be done in 5 days, period, because there are people out there teaching it in a weekend, and I think it's doing a disservice to the work, to be really honest. And and I told this to Joanne, I won't get kicked off the teachers list for disrespecting it, her request to do it for a long time. But I do believe that in relationship with your helping spirits, your patients will get everything they need, and you will get healing. And I think that's important to know. It's not just a training of techniques class. This is a personal healing journey for all of you. And, you can do a personal healing journey every year and still uncover levels and levels and levels. You know, I had my socks blown off this past weekend. Walked on fire. I walked across fire. Like, you know, you think you have your belief systems in check, right? I just have to share. I can't help it. And, you know, as much as you can believe in the mystical and the magical and the profoundly spiritual, somebody rakes out hot coals and tells you you can walk across this. You're like, I am not so sure. And I did. And I don't have blisters on my feet. You know, like that's the first thing I was checking for. You know, and, you know, that was a whole lesson in being filled up. You know, being filled up with spirit enough that nothing can touch me. You know, that's what the yogis did when they crawl on their bellies across fire. So, you know, we're all on a healing journey. Did you have any other questions? No. I just wanted to talk a little bit about, and did anybody else have questions? No. Spiritual blockages. Some of you in this community have done plant spirit medicine. Some of you know the word possession. Possession is all over the media, you know, in popular belief or popular television shows. But a possessing spirit or a cold or an event or an experience or a trauma, if anything is stuck in you and is creating pain, right, that is an intrusion. And you're helping with the guidance of your helping spirits will help you get that out of the person's body. That is the plain and simple explanation of possession. Brazil, the spiritualist in Brazil, they do these multi-day ceremonies with possession. Joanne's witnessed me doing possessions that took hours, 8 hours on you. Did it? Was it? On a long time. And, you know, any healing is the biggest gift you can give to somebody. But if somebody has something in the way that keeps them from being their bright self, you know, that's a possession. So sometimes that's an idea, like a looping idea, like self-worth, lack of self-worth, is when it's obsessive. It's, you know, it's an intrusion. It's something that's stuck in your body, in your mind. And I've had people that have been completely possessed by another being. And it can be challenging work. And to be honest with you, I think I am more moved by moving the entity to where the entity needs to go, to where the spirit needs to go. You know, I think that's actually, as the practitioner, that's the more important work, to take this precious being and allow it to go where it needs to go. And the side benefit is that your patient no longer is carrying around something else. But intrusions, you know, they can show up as, I've seen it as glass in somebody's elbow, like as in a journey. You start plucking out glass and the pain goes away. Sometimes you know the stories, sometimes you don't know the stories. It's really okay, you know, as long as you're in relationship with your helping spirits, you know, the intrusion goes. It's curious that the 5-element acupuncture, because it's very Taoist based, and if you look at Japanese anime, some really interesting Japanese anime, there's spirits all over the place. You know, they have a relationship that there are spirits living all around us, right? And some of them are tricksters and some of them possess, but that's part of the culture of mostly Japan and China, actually. I think I have a unique perspective, because I do possession with needles as a five-element tradition. There's depossession from the plant spirit medicine tradition. And then I've studied some depossession work from different shamanic people as well. And then I do my own, my own way now. But, I think sometimes just studying the different ways helps you understand the entity or the possession more than the technique of how to get it out. So, and the other thing that, and I think, I'm not sure, like I think I mentioned last week, I'm going to really do a lot of journeys and ask my helping spirits what this community needs to know. But one other type of shamanic healing is psychopump work. So shamans work with the living and the dead, right? And psychopump work is helping lost souls or souls that didn't transition, helping them transition. So I live, currently I'm living near Valley Forge Park, which, George Washington and American history and the Revolution. And there are tons of dead soldiers, like burial plots. And actually, I didn't know this, but Philadelphia has potter's fields all under the Liberty Bell. I don't know if you knew this, but it's where they're mass graves. And when I was walking in Valley Forge Park, I started seeing dead soldiers. And it started, not like movies, seeing, sensing other men around that felt like, whatever, but whatever my filter was that. So I used to go over to the park and do psychopump work for the soldiers that were still twixt in between. And that's one more important level of shamanic work. Now, not all shamans do all these things, and you're going to all find what's important to you. My goal is to expose you to what I can, teach you what I can that I feel like you can fully embody, and own on your own. I don't want to teach you anything halfway. I think that's a disservice to all of you. But there's going to be a lot of different healing for yourself and techniques that you can learn from your other people. So I think that's what I want to say about shamanic healing. Sorry, y'all, that was a little roundabout, but and one other thing you can think about before we close is the power of words. And I think part of being a good, an extraordinary healer, not just a good one, but an extraordinary healer, is how you tell the story of what you saw. And some of you are learning to craft that story when you give essences to somebody. You can say, I am giving you this to blah, 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 very ordinary reality. And then you can tell them that you can craft the story, the healing story of why you're giving them this particular formula, or you're doing this, or what you saw in a journey, in a way that it makes the healing rich for them as well. And I'm really, I love the healing story. I think I know words have power. We all have heard stories where people were diagnosed with cancer and they said they had 6 months to live, and people die on those 6 months, right? I have a close personal friend who got diagnosed and had probably 3 to 4 years to live because she went and did the research. But the doctor, the oncologist, never used a time frame. Never used a time frame. The woman's alive 20 years later. Extraordinary, miracle. A miracle. And I do believe there was something, because I was watching. I was a witness for this person to hold space. And I was watching, listening for the oncologist to give the deadline. And she was an oncologist who had been practicing for like 40 years. So she knew, she was a full-blown healer. You know what I mean? And I think that happens with age. as you practice a while. And so I'm really, I'm going to talk a lot about the healing story, because I think to craft a journey that works for each and every one of you, so you can go and ask your helping spirits, like how to articulate what you want, is something that we'll absolutely talk about, and how to gather the information for yourself and write it down and understand the metaphors that empower you is something that we'll work with. And how to share the craziest things in the world that you are going to see in a journey. And how do you craft that into a story that works for that person? So these are all the things that are going to get interwoven throughout the 9 months. Some of them will be in person, and some of them will be over the phone or over the video conferencing, because there is no difference in time and space. And I know that we can do amazing work together, because I can already feel the love and the integrity of the circle. I guess that would be the word. Like, there's something. I'm a very somatic person, so for me, this is what I'm feeling from this community right now. So it's pretty cool. So does anybody have questions? Any ahas, thoughts?
I'm so excited. I'm like, I can't wait to learn all of this. I don't know about anyone else, but I'm like, I can't wait. And I have a cold, and I know I have loss of power, just like being a mom and having my resources depleted. I'm like, I can't wait to have a session. Like, I'm just like, I'm really excited. And anyone else want to share any questions or sharings or whatever's present for you? Bex?
I'll go ahead and share. I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together and being here. And it's really confirmed all my reasons for feeling the need to do this. I live in Florida, and there's a good healing community around me, but I don't know anybody here. And so I feel very alone. And I'm on my healing journey, and I also want to be a healer for others. I have a big problem with external validation, always needing that external validation in order to feel comfortable. And I don't want to be in that space anymore. And I want to be powerful, and I want access to going internal for myself to find the answers for me and for others. And I can't wait to see that manifest in a physical community. But I think for me, my biggest journey is about finding how to do it internally first, and then everything else will manifest itself naturally. So you pretty much nailed everything for me, and I am so stoked to be there. I hope I see all of these beautiful women there. And it's a dream come true, so thank you.
Thank you. I do believe we have to start with ourselves. I mean, we have to start with ourselves. We need to be the mirrors. So those folks that don't know that the moon changes cycles will start just to look at the world a little differently. I mean, I think that's part of being a healer, is to mirror our light, So thank you for that. I'm so glad. Yay. I can't wait to meet you.
Natalie, you have a logistical question. When do you need to know for certain if we're coming or pay our deposit to hold our space? So our registration closes August 30th. Just be in touch with me. I mean, just be in touch with me. Let me know what's present for you, and we'll work it out, whatever we need to do to save your space, because you're already in.
Great. Yeah.
Any other questions or shares? There was also that question, Damini, I had emailed you, and I think it's a really important question to answer. I know you touched on it. Actually, ooh, my sofa just like squeaked forward. Like,
and what was that question?
Yeah, so it actually is really important. And I had a woman, I'm going to actually read it, like from the woman who wrote it. It's from Instagram. And I think whenever we bring in these ancient teachings, it's really important. So this woman asks, can you share how your shamanic offerings avoid culturally appropriating indigenous traditions? And I know you touched on it because you were sharing like that the foundation that you studied with just sort of takes the foundation of shamanism and has kind of made it its own. But how do we also honor and respect indigenous cultures and indigenous traditions? And I think this is important because we may each as practitioners be asked this question,
right.
You know, and I think in this world with social media and how we're projecting ourselves and who we're putting ourselves out, it's just so important, this. And so I know that we're wrapping up and, you know, we're kind of at time, but I wanted us all to have a moment for this.
And I think it is an important question. I would like to say that I don't believe that there's any conscious indigenous work that I do or teach, you know, and then I realize that, you know, sometimes I say the word aho, which is a first American's way of saying, yeah, you know, so that's already a cultural trapping, you know, where I'm not teaching. One thing the spirit's yammering on. One is we are not shamans. Shaman is a name that is given from the community to a person. And I think that's really important. When somebody tells me they're a shaman, unless they are truly an indigenous elder, I'm like inside screaming. We are shamanic practitioners, right? And shamanism, that word, I believe, comes from Mongolia. So there's already another indigenous cultural trapping, whatever, you know, it's coming from another culture. But I am teaching you skills that are common or foundation from most indigenous cultures, right? My goal is to give you the pieces that are these cross-cultural pieces so you can make it your own. Even down to something like what the directions mean. You know, everybody goes to a book or goes online now and finds out what directions mean what. But in the first peoples of America, those directions all mean something different, right? So I don't look on, you know, so I'm encouraging everybody to go to the spirit of that direction and with direct revelation, get the information. Because really that is what the first peoples did. Wherever they were, wherever in the world they were. And I can't say that I'm not teaching, as far as I understand, any one particular culture's anything, right? It's, you know, because I've learned it from a very broad base and I've made it my own. So most Native people I've met, when I talk, you know, I can only talk about my personal experience here. When I've talked about what I do, you know, there's never any judgment that I have taken something from them, because I've owned the medicine and it's come through me in a way that's clear for me. And that's what I want to do for each and every one of you. You know, most indigenous people have had so much stolen from them. And it's a heartbreak, to be honest with you. But what I feel that I'm teaching you is the underlying lying of all of that before culture, if that makes sense to you at all. Because we all have these threads. If Joanne asked you all to breathe in and breathe out and connect with the earth and then connect with the heavens, I could tell you that's Chinese medicine. I could tell you that's first Americans stuff, it's all over the place. Some of it was a little Celt. We can't help, especially in this day and age, we cannot help but to borrow, or not even borrow, integrate, I guess. But I'm a white chick from South Philadelphia, and I'm teaching in a way that I would have wanted to be taught. Does that make sense? Does that feel right? Do you understand where I'm going with this? I mean, some of you have, people, communities. In North Jersey, there are powwow dances. It's not something I'm interested in. I hold great respect for them, but I'm not going to go and put feathers on and dance around in moccasins. It's not who I am. Contemporary shamanism is about making this medicine fit who you are. And I think that's really, really important. So, yeah. I'm a kind of a worldly shamanism. If you look at my altar, there's a little bit of everybody up there. Joanne, you had a story you wanted to tell? Or do you have time?
I did. What was it?
Something you said, if we have time, I'll tell a story.
Oh, I was sharing about my drum in the beginning. I made the drum.
Mm-hmm.
And then I remember seeing you one day. I don't remember where we were. And you were like, I was told to give this to you in a journey. And I was like, whoa, this is so amazing. And then I've had it, this whole time. And
right.
with me in every circle and every retreat, and she's my love.
She is so happy. I do have a thing about when Spirit asks me to give things away. It's like, okay. But it's that is the fluidity of things, right? Yeah. Well, if you have any other questions, I know I mentioned last week I have a rough skeleton of what I'm going to offer, and I want to sit with it. I've been writing down all these things I can do, but I want to sit with Spirit and sit with all of you. I have this altar here that's for this community already, and see what Spirit wants me to teach you as well. I know that sounds like it could be all over the place, but I've learned to allow Spirit to guide me. That is what I do. I allow Spirit to speak through me through intuition and to actually speak to me through journeys. And I have to always trust that the divine Spirit, my power animals, however you want to call them, has all of our best interests in mind. So it can be a profound journey for each and every one of us, including myself, Joanne, and every one of you here. So, but if you have any more questions, feel free to ask them, and we'll answer them to the best that we can.
Thank you so much, Damini. That was really great. My like Virgo moon self really loved just like getting information. Like I love doing the journeys like we did last week, but I really love understanding it all. And So today's the 28th. So our registration closes in 2 days. And again, it's a really intimate group. And I know there's some of you who have reached out to me saying like, you want to take it and then you disappear for a couple days. And so just know that registration is closing, and space is limited to 13 women. So for those of you who have already taken my flower essence training, you don't need to fill out an application. I already know who you are. Just send me an email that you want to take it and we'll get you registered. And then for those of you who haven't taken that flower essence training, please fill out an application, because we want to make sure that this program is right for you and that you're in the right space to enroll in this program. We don't just say yes to just like everyone. That's why it is application. We really want to make sure that it feels like a cohesive fit for you and your path and for all of us. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you. Our retreat is September 17th to the 23rd. And so the reason we're closing registration in August is so that, you can make your travel plans, and it's not like you're registering the night before and then have to book a plane ticket. So if finances are an issue and you're like, I absolutely want to take it, and you can only just pay us a little deposit, then just be in conversation. I feel like both Damini and myself are that kind of person. Just be in communication with us, and we'll see how we can work things out. So I can't wait to see those of you who are coming. I will be sitting in the circle as a student, and yeah, send us an email if you have any questions. So any final thing you want to say, Damini, before we close?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So as we started, let's have us all close our eyes for a moment, and we'll access all those amazing cultures that we're living into and integrating and embodying, doing it all with the honor and the respect that's deep within our beings. And so we give thanks to the way that Mother Earth has held us during this time. And we give thanks for the way a great spirit has held us. We give thanks for the openings, the insights, the clarity, perhaps any releasing that has come forward. We give thanks for the knowing that we are part of a greater sisterhood and a part, of course, of the whole of life. That we are such an important frequency connected to the greater collective, creating more and more and more frequencies of love. And we give thanks to all of our guides and teachers, seen and unseen. And may we walk our path with so much beauty, love, wisdom, and integrity. Presencing each woman in this circle here and those who will be listening to the recording. We give great thanks for this moment in time, this opportunity and this privilege to circle in this way. And so it is. Bowing down to each of you and to all of us. And you can open your eyes. I'm going to unmute us all and we can say our goodbyes to hear each other's voices. See you soon. Maybe see you in Ojai. Love and blessings.
Bye. Damini, it's so lovely to meet you. Bye. Much love. Thank you. Well, lovely to meet each and every one of you. And those of you listening too. Mwah. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.